everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and we got an exceptional journey for you guys today. We're joined by Dana Mitchell, who was a regular on the hit series Ghosts of Shepherdstown, featuring Nick Groff, and it was a wonderful show. And she is also a historian researcher from that area, but she is joining us today to talk about her experiences as well. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal Podcast. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thank you all for joining us, and special thank you goes out to all of you who continue to support the podcast and continue to spread the word. Always remember, if any of you out there have experiences of your own that you'd like to share, feel free to email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. Again, paranormalportalradio@gmail.com, and you too could be a guest on the show. Further delay, let's get to the show. Hey Dana, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine. It was you and I have been talking for a little while anyway, and this is going to be a fantastic discussion. But if you don't mind, I think a lot of us are always curious because we see the shows and the television programs and of investigating ghosts, and a lot of us, of course, have questions about that. But I just have to ask you, A, how was that experience for you, and B, what was the show pretty legit as far as being behind the scenes and what you see on TV?
Well, it was a wonderful experience for me. It was so much fun. It was my 15 minutes of fame. and as far as being legit, it was as legit as any reality show could be. It was, they had to do some cutting down of time.
Sure.
When they do research, they're in these buildings for 15, 16 hours. So they can't show everything.
Right.
But it was certainly above board and true to form.
Yeah.
Legit.
Absolutely. I was always a fan of that show for sure.
And the crew was wonderful to work with. They were all professionals, experienced, like Nick, of course, but he was a lot of fun to work with.
Yeah, they seemed like a great group of people for sure.
It was.
Aww.
And there's a lot of behind the scenes stories too that went on that just there wasn't room to put them on the show or on television.
Yeah.
But
so in your experience, then the investigative scenes were absolutely legit. There was nothing being staged or anything like that.
Nothing was staged. Things were reenacted. They had to recreate things, but I think they indicated that on the show.
Yeah.
But they were true occurrences, and a lot of things they just caught on camera.
Yeah.
Everything was filmed as it was happening.
Right.
None of the investigations was staged or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic, and it's nice to hear that because, of course, again, you hear some of the scuttlebutt. Oh, those shows are all fake. They're all fake. But I've always been a fan of Nick's because I've always had the feeling like he just seems so straightforward and down to earth and such a kind guy.
He is. And like I said, he's got a great sense of humor too.
I'll bet he does. But yeah, that's an incredible experience. And of course you were really instrumental in doing a lot of the background research into the locations and such. And you had done tours as that's right. Right.
When I love showing people things. And when we moved to Shepherdstown from Maryland, I'm originally from Maryland and I'm actually back in Maryland, but we lived in Shepherdstown for 15 years. There was no historical tours, and this town that had experienced so much history, from Native American to the early settlers to the French Indian War, and the Revolutionary War and Civil War, and so on and so forth. There was no historical tours. So I spent a lot of years researching, because I didn't want to just move to a new town and start up a history tour. It seemed like a little hubris. So
Sure.
It took a few years to put everything together. And I started this very successful walk where Shepherdstown is not far from Harper's Ferry.
Okay.
And a few other locations. It's right on the Potomac River. So there was reasons for people to come to the area. So the walk did quite well. But people wanted ghost stories along with history. So I took some of the, did research into some of the local lore and would incorporate that. And then people started taking pictures. We're taking pictures on the walk, and they were getting captures.
Oh, neat.
All kinds of great captures. And I thought, I want to do that too. And so I got EVPs in my own house as well. And I'll talk to you about my own house in a little bit.
Sure.
The people who started Goes to Shepherdstown through a number of circumstances concerning the police there, they got wind of it and came to town several times, and they would call me. People told them about me and how much information I had, and they would call me and ask if I knew about a certain location or if I knew about a certain story or whatever. And I would tell them, and then weeks, even months would go by, not thinking any more about it, and they'd call me again. So over a 2-year period, they'd called me several times. I didn't know I was going to be on the show. I thought at best I was going to be in the, listed as a consultant, but then they messaged me and said, show up at 9:30 Saturday morning. And I'm like, whoa.
Wow, no doubt. Well, and it was an incredible experience, huh?
Oh, very much so. And there was so much more that went on that they didn't have time to put in the show.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll tell you an experience. We were down filming in an area. It was 3:00 in the morning, and I was all by myself down by the river. They were out in the woods, and I kept looking for. I was kind of bored, and and I saw the shadow of a woman behind me wearing a hat, and I thought it was one of the crew or Elizabeth, and there was nobody there.
Oh, wow.
And then when they all came back from being in the woods, and I mentioned that I'm somewhat psychic or intuitive, but I got the sense that Nick had an attachment. And I said, Nick, you have 2 attachments, one on you, and he said, why do people keep telling me that?
Wow, that's incredible.
And then we looked at the footage, and there were 2 blue figures on either side of Nick in
neat.
the, I don't know what they call that kind of camera that shows you colors.
Oh, the forward-looking infrared or FLIR?
Yeah, the FLIR type thing, yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's incredible.
Oof. And it turns out he had gotten kind of, for no reason, he had gotten kind of angry in the woods. Something was bothering him, but he was all right. He's all right.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. Yeah.
He gets exposed to a lot of things.
Yeah,
a lot of
I'll bet he does.
spirit activity.
Yeah, with all of the places and such that they've gone through the years and such. Yeah, I'm sure he's lucky he only ended up with 2.
But, that wasn't even one of the part of the storyline of the show. That was just something that happened.
Sure, yeah. And I'm sure you're right. I'm sure that, but Shepherdstown truly is and continues to be a very active location, huh?
Oh, very active. I mean, even after everybody was gone, I did not realize. Let me tell you the story how we ended up there.
Okay.
Now, my husband's a more pragmatic person, so my story is a little more whimsical or serendipitous than his, but This is how it happened for me. We weren't yet married at the time. We were living in separate residences, and he said he got some email. We had gone up to Shepherdstown. He's very much involved with music, and we went up there for one of the music things they do. Mm-hmm. And he must have gotten on some mailing list because he got an email about this house that was for sale. He said, let's go up and look at it. And I'm like, why? We're not looking for a house. And he said, well, it's a beautiful day. Let's just go for a ride. So we head on up there. It was about an hour and a half from where we lived. And as we turn onto the Rain Road, Shepherdstown Pike that takes you to Shepherdstown, a voice in my head said, this is the road that leads you home. Oh, wow. And I thought, to myself. As I told you earlier, I am clairaudient. I hear things.
Right. Wow.
So we drove on into the town. Well, he had not written down any address or anything. This house could have been anywhere. Could have been outside the town. But I directed him. I said, turn left here. And we went up. I said, turn right here. I said, turn right here. And there was the house. And I was more surprised. I'm like, whoa.
That's incredible.
There it is.
That's amazing.
So we went in and looked around, and I was completely charmed by the place. It was one of the original plats when Shepherdstown was platted out by Shepherd himself. And what they did then is he did land grants, but you had to get a house up real quick. So a lot of people built log houses, and then after they were settled in, they put siding or brick or whatever on it. Oh. And so this was one of those old houses that had gone through many transformations. So it was pretty much dated back to 1850, but it was there earlier. Oh, but I was totally charmed by it. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to come look at houses that we have no intention of moving to or anything. So we go back outside, and I see my future husband talking to the real estate agent. And the next thing you know, he's writing a check. And we go back to the D.C. area where we lived, and I tell her, and their friends are, you did what? Yeah, we got a house. Wow.
That's so serendipitous. So, yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, the house cast a glamour, which is a term.
Sure, yeah.
It made us charmed by it, and because then after we moved in, we found all the 101 things that needed to be fixed in an old house like that.
Oh, yeah.
So
I understand.
So that house was very occupied, but I'll tell you about that when I talk about my haunted houses.
This is probably a perfect time to dive into that then. So tell us what happened.
Okay, well, the first house was my daughters and myself. I had two daughters. We moved into a little house in an area called Old Greenbelt. And this was a planned community that was built in the 1930s. And it was supposed to... It provided work for people during the Depression. It was part of the work projects and the CCC and the WPA and all that Depression era stuff. And it gave people jobs building this community. And then it was a planned community for getting people out of the city into a more sylvan environment. And everything was contained in this town, all the schools, the churches, and it was convenient to trains to take you back into D.C. This is all outside of D.C.
Okay.
So my house was built in 1941. they kind of shelved it after that because World War II broke out, so they needed, their resources for other things. So mine was built in 1941, and there wasn't anything special about it. We moved in. There wasn't anything there. I got the presents that an older woman had been there, and I brought her some flowers and dusting. Oh, that's nice. So for the first several months or maybe a year, there was nothing going on. And I think something followed my daughter's home, one of my daughters. Oh. But it wasn't bad. It was a childlike thing. We started hearing somebody running up and down the stairs, like a kid does. Now, the person who lived next door to me was an elderly man, and on the other side of me was an elderly couple. I know they weren't running up and down stairs. So this happened all the time. And it wasn't like only when I was home or something. Anybody who came to the house, it might start. And my daughters had friends. Some of them wouldn't come to our house because of the activity there. You would also hear furniture moving around upstairs. Oh, wow. And one time, a music box that had been on a shelf and hadn't been played in years just started playing. Oh. Sounds were coming out from underneath one of my daughter's beds. It sounded like popcorn popping or bubble wrap popping.
Oh, interesting.
And we weren't frightened or anything. Like I said to you earlier, I'd always been interested in the supernatural or the paranormal and the occult. And I had done a lot of studying and experiential things throughout my life. And so we coexisted with it. We got kind of a kick out of it. Until one day, my daughter called me and said, "Mom, I have my friends over, and the ghost is jumping so hard that it's causing, like particles to come down from the ceiling."
Wow.
And I said, "Well, just tell it to stop and to go away." And I could hear it too, boom, boom, boom. I said, "Tell it to stop and to just go away." I said, "We have some frankincense there, some sage. You might want to burn it." Mm-hmm. So the moment she told it to stop, it stopped, and it never came back. It just stopped dead. Wow. Flat. And then we felt bad about it because it really wasn't a harmful thing. It was kind of a mischievous, childlike thing, but no more running on the stairs, no more anything. So I said, "Yeah, that's too bad, Angie, but don't invite it back, because you don't know what might come back."
Yeah, that's a good point.
I said, "So don't invite it back. We don't know who it was or where it came from." So confident in that, I went to bed. A couple nights later, I went to bed, and I felt something watching me, and it didn't feel good. And I turned around, and I said, "You are not welcome here. Wow. Please leave." Mm-hmm. And it left. And then I said to my daughter the next day, "Did you try to invite the spirit back?" And she said, "Well, don't get mad, Mom. Now, don't get mad."
Oh, no. Wow.
I told you not to do that.
Yikes. That's kind of spooky.
Another couple things that happened there, and I've been trying to remember. I can't remember if it was before the child spirit or after. But like I said, these houses were built in the late 30s in 1941, and there was no air conditioning, central air conditioning. So I had a window unit in my daughter's room, and I had a window unit in the living room. So one night, on a hot night, I was sitting on the sofa. It was late at night. I'm a night owl, and I have insomnia too, so I'm down there. And I see my daughter, or what I thought was my daughter, coming down the stairs, my daughter's size and height. And I said to her, "Angie, what are you doing up at this hour?" And it didn't answer me. And as I got closer, I saw that it was a figure made of static.
Oh.
It was about the size of a. It was, my daughter is 5'7".
Okay.
Even at 13, she was tall.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was that height, and it was undulating static. Had a human form. I just looked at it, and I like examined it. I'm like, what is this?
That's amazing.
And I said, can I see through it? No, it is not transparent. It is opaque. I could not see the other side of it. But I did not feel or sense anything from it. Not negative, not positive, nothing. It just kind of stood there at the foot of my sofa, just this undulating static. And then, like so many, I notice when I listen, to people's stories, I just went to sleep after that.
It wasn't.
Nothing's happening here.
Right. It wasn't fearful. I mean, do you believe it obviously was aware of you and was making like a direct connection at that point, or did it just happen to be there and you happened to be there? What was your takeaway? Like, was it intelligent or?
I didn't feel anything from it. Like I said, it was this was my theory, weird theory, because everything is energy.
Right.
My daughter would fall asleep with the television on, and back then it was the regular TVs that just would be static after the stations went off.
Sure.
And it was like if somebody took a human, like a gingerbread cookie cutter, a human-sized shaped cookie cutter, and cut out the static from the TV and made it life-size. I mean,
so
that's what it looked like, television static. It was moving. It was,
Okay. Was it
I've heard a lot about shadow people and stuff, but it wasn't a shadow person. It was a static person.
Okay. Was it glowing, or was it just when you could see it, it was this static pattern just all over?
It was a static pattern just all over.
Okay.
It was like black and white and gray static, just like you'd see on a old television screen.
That is absolutely fascinating.
But it had arms and legs and a head.
Huh. That's a great...
No facial features.
That's a great experience, because I've heard people describe ghosts looking staticky or like a chaotic pattern to them, but this is a great example of that, but with much more clarity. That's incredible.
And actually, I kind of got bored with it. It wasn't doing anything.
Wow.
That's why I just I turned over and went to sleep. Well, I remember thinking, well, I don't feel any negativity, so.
Sure. Wow. What an incredible experience.
And of course, in the morning it was gone.
Yeah. What an incredible experience, though. That really is fascinating to me. That's wonderful. So what happens next?
Well, when you walked into my house, it was just a big room. To the left was a kitchen that you entered through a doorway, but the living area and dining area was just a big room. And at the back, there were 3 windows that I had mini blinds on and hanging plants. Mm-hmm. So one day I had to run out to the store. Now, like I said, this is a planned community, so everything was real close. The grocery store wasn't more than 5 minutes away. I needed milk, and my daughter was sleeping like a log. She did sleep. I mean, she would sleep like a log. And she was up there sleeping, and I ran out to get milk. So it took me like 5 minutes to get to the grocery store, 5 minutes to get the milk, and 5 minutes to get back at the most. And I walk in the door, and the living room looks like a tornado hit it. The hanging plants have gone the length of the room, are over by the front door. The mini blinds are off and scattered all over the room. And I'm like, what the heck's going on here? And I go up to ask my daughter and she's dead asleep. Same position as when I left, just sleeping like a log. So I don't know what happened in those 15 minutes that I was gone.
Oh, man.
Yeah, the mini blinds are off the window. The plants are over by the front door, like thrown.
So they were just thrown and like blown apart, basically, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I never did find out what that was about.
Yeah, That's intense. So then what happens?
Well, it wasn't, let's see, I don't think anything memorable happened after that there.
Okay.
Maybe I use a lot of sage. So.
I understand. I understand completely.
Nothing memorable happened after that. And it wasn't, too long after that I got remarried and moved to Shepherdstown. Oh. But one incident that happened with me was I had a very close friend and mentor and teacher of the esoteric arts, so to speak.
Sure. Yeah.
And she passed away.
Oh.
And a year later or so, and as I recall, it was around Samhain. It was, Halloween time.
Sure.
A friend of mine who also had known her, we went out to lunch. We worked together, and we went to lunch. We went to this Chinese restaurant, and my friend who had passed loved Chinese. But so me and my coworker friend we were at a Chinese restaurant, and we were sitting at a four-top booth, but we were sitting on the edge. So if you picture a booth that would seat 4 people, had place settings for 4 people, but we were sitting on the edge.
Okay.
And the waitress brought a bowl of vegetables and sat it down next to us. Well, after she left, the bowl started to move. And it started to, make its way down the table. And me and my friend, who was also into things, we're just watching it, we're just observing it. Uh-huh. And both of us are thinking, well, there's probably water on the bottom or something sticky.
Sure.
And it makes its way down turns and settles itself right next to me at where would be a place set, where there is a place setting. Oh. Like it set itself right into where there would be someone else sitting. And then it shifted to the right and shifted to the left a little bit and settled down. And so we laughed and we picked it up. The bottom was absolutely dry. There was nothing on the table, no water, no sticky stuff, nothing on the bowl, nothing on the table. We tried to replicate it. We sat it on the table and shook the table like maybe a truck drove by or something. We're trying to shake. We tipped the table. Nothing. It just sits there. Because it's one of those little Chinese bowls that has a base to it.
Sure.
So we had no explanation for it. Then I thought it was our deceased friend.
Yeah.
At Samhain coming to make a visit and enjoying Chinese food with us.
That's incredible, and that's a really powerful event to witness. Really, I mean,
it was. And the thing that made both of us mad is no one would believe us. And I still run into him from time to time, and we go over that story. And then it was no one would believe us, but we believe it. We were both there. We both experienced it.
That's an incredible thing. Yeah, very cool. Wow.
So we moved to Shepherdstown. Where I moved. He actually moved before me, and because I worked at the University of Maryland.
Oh, okay.
And you can't get there from here. It was like a 3-hour drive. So I took early retirement, and then I moved up there permanently. And like I said, the house was built in 1850. Now Shepherdstown had been is only 4 miles from where the Battle of Antietam took place, and the wounded from the Battle of Antietam were brought to Shepherdstown. The Union wounded were kept in Sharpsburg because that's Maryland, and that was Union.
Okay.
Even though West Virginia had separated from Virginia, it was still kind of conflicted. There were still Confederate supporters there and Union supporters. So they sent the wounded over to Shepherdstown, and every house, including mine, and every building became a field hospital or an infirmary or used in some way. Because there were, there were 21,000 casualties in the Battle of Antietam.
Oh, my God.
That was an awful, awful day. Yeah. And it's right along the Potomac River. The bridge had been destroyed by the Confederacy, so the only way you could get the wounded across was carrying on horseback or in wagons. Well, there was a torrential rain that day in September, and some of them just couldn't get the wagons across, couldn't get the horses across, and, they perished there.
Sure.
But they brought in like 8,000 wounded into this little town that at tops only had about a 700 or 800 person population.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, they were bringing them to any place that had a roof on it. They would bring the wounded, including my house.
Okay.
Well, my house seemed pretty quiet, but then it wasn't long that the banging on the door started. Bam, bam, bam. And at first, I was the only one to hear it. It would seem to happen whenever my husband wasn't at home. And they'd go to the door, and, of course, no one was there. Sometimes the banging would be on the side of the house, bang, 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 or on the window. But there was never anyone there. At first, it was something that happened once in a while. But over time, it was at its peak. It was happening probably 3 or 4 times a week. And other people were hearing it. My husband finally heard it. The dog always heard it, would running to the front of the house, barking, and no one was there. House guests heard it because it would come at all hours of the day and night. I came to the conclusion it was probably residual energy of people bringing a wounded person to the house and banging on the wall or the door,
right?
Or the side of the house just to let them know, we're coming. We got someone. Let us in.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah. One Saturday morning, the banging was pretty early, and my husband turned to me and kind of jokingly said, "Would you please tell your ghost to let us sleep and stop that?"
Oh, no.
And it never happened again.
Oh, interesting.
It never happened again. And then I felt sorry about that. I thought that was kind of, it was, I don't want to say annoying. It was different.
Sure.
But when it stopped, I kind of missed it.
Right. But it does kind of say then maybe it was more intelligent because,
that's true.
Yeah. With residual things, they shouldn't probably matter either way, but unless, I don't know, unless that energy finally just wound out, but could that coincide exactly when you were told to make them stop?
Well, that's true. That does kind of indicate consciousness of some sort.
Yeah.
If it stopped when it was asked to stop.
Yeah.
Huh.
That is interesting.
Never thought about that before.
Oh.
Now, there was a whole lot of activity in that house, and I just always chalked it up to the house settling or my imagination. It wasn't until after we moved back to Maryland and I moved into this condo that's not very old that I realized how active it was because I don't experience anything here like I did there. I would hear music a lot, just like a faint, like a Victrola, like music from the 1920s and 30s.
Oh, okay.
And I just thought, I don't know what I thought. It was in my imagination. Then one night I heard opera, like a male tenor like Caruso. Oh. And it was quite clear. And I said to my husband, "Do you hear that?" No, he didn't hear anything. And it lasted quite a long time. In fact, I gradually fell asleep to the sound of Italian opera. And that was pretty beautiful.
That's neat. That's really a great experience. And perhaps that's your clairaudience, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, because I would hear these things. Like I heard a woman scream. Oh. Did you hear that? No. Okay. Oh. One night I'm sitting down and I'm hearing cannons. And I'm thinking, oh, that's probably just something going on at Antietam. Because, Antietam would have a lot of remembrances and reenactments and stuff. But I'm like, wait a minute, it's 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah, that's probably not a reenactment.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's the funny thing, living there. There were a lot of reenactments there, and you would see Civil War soldiers sitting on the side of the road, and I'd think, is that person real or a reenactor?
Right. And you got to wonder how many actually weren't real, but they looked like the reenactors, so you just brush it off.
Yeah,
wow.
Exactly.
That's intense. Yeah.
Yeah, that's happened before too. I mean, there are paranormal research groups that just go to Antietam.
Oh, okay. Sure. Yeah, it's pretty widely regarded that those battlefields are still holding all kinds of energy and all kinds of spirits. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, one time, my husband, you would have to drive through Antietam from going from one place to the other up in that area.
Oh, okay.
And so one time my husband came home, he said, I think I know what it feels like to be shot in the neck.
Oh.
He said, by driving through there, he suddenly felt like this sharp pain going like through his neck and up the other side.
Oh, interesting. Wow. Huh. Yeah, I imagine. I mean, I suppose maybe, that was his moment, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he's still not a big believer, but he's also not a big detractor anymore either.
I'm sure, yeah, with all that you guys have experienced. Yeah, you probably just come to terms with it. And it's interesting how you said that it wasn't until you moved back to Maryland you realized how busy that house was. But, when you're living in that and surrounded by it, I mean, we as human beings can pretty much adjust to anything given enough time,
Exactly. I mean, I would hear things all the time in the night and just dismiss them, just creaks and cracks and bumps, and how's that old Scottish poem go about things that go bump in the night?
I'm not sure.
Beasties and, it's beasties and something that go bump in the night.
Oh, yeah.
No, I had a friend. She was the producer-director of a paranormal show called RIP Files. I don't know if you're...
Oh, I think, I've heard of that, yeah.
She created that, and she lived near me, and so she was always looking to create another show. And she was just visiting, and I'm like, let's go through my house. We've never, done anything there. And while we're sitting there talking, we can hear footsteps up above, upstairs.
Ooh.
And it's like, I've never really paid attention to that before. And it made the dining room light kind of swing a little bit. I'm like, I never even noticed that. So we took a recorder around. We went upstairs, and they got an EVP. Now, they're very steep stairs going up the stairs.
Uh-huh.
And that takes you to the bedrooms on the second level. And then there's steep stairs that go up into the attic. And we got an EVP of something whispering, steep stairs.
Wow. Wow. That's a great capture.
Yeah. Now, in that bedroom, my cousin, when she had spent the night, said the rocking chair, and it was a rocking chair on springs. It wasn't a rocking chair. But she said the rocking chair started rocking. Oh. And my daughter, when she had stayed in that bedroom, she woke up. She said there was a woman leaning over her.
Oh, wow.
I'm thinking that might have been from when it was used as a field hospital, and somebody who was caring for a wounded person was looking over them.
That's a great take. Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense.
I don't know. Then we went down to the basement, and she asked, "Are you the same spirit that's upstairs?" And it just said no. So I never did any more EVPs. I just kind of accepted these things. I wasn't like out to prove anything. The things had been proven to me a long time ago. So
Yeah, I suppose, when you've had as many experiences as you've had.
Except once we were using a spirit board, and I don't use spirit boards often, but it was Samhain, and that's when, the worlds between are the thinnest.
Yep.
So that was interesting. With a group of people, we had a séance of sorts, and we were doing different methods.
Okay.
All of which were like we used a candle, and the candle would respond to questions and to each person. It was amazing. But we were using a spirit board, and it said, Dana is a bitch. And then it wrote, sorry.
Oh, that's pretty harsh.
I know.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I also realized that they sometimes just like to mess with you.
Yeah. No, well, for what it's worth, I think it was absolutely incorrect. You are not that.
Oh, thank you. I do too. I don't know why it said that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something funny. Before we moved in, I used to be, at one time I was involved with a metaphysical chapel. Mm-hmm. And when we got this house, I was interested to know if the psychics there picked up anything. So I stopped by there, and there was just one guy there, and I talked to him. I said, we just got this house, and it was built in 1850, and I wonder if you pick up anything on it. And he said, well, the spirits want to know what your plans are, which was interesting because the house had just been flipped.
Oh.
And he said, they just want to know if you're going to stay there. And then the thing is, my husband's a bagpiper.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
There's another interesting fun fact. And he said, they want to know what that new sound is. And I said, a new sound? I said, oh, bagpipes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Isn't that?
It's kind of a really cool insight into their experience, because, I mean, we oftentimes just take for granted, well, if they're there, they're just these entities that are, maybe stuck or for whatever reason they're in a place. But it is kind of, I mean, if it was people, if someone moved in your house, you'd be like, oh, okay, what's your plan here? How long are you going to be here? What's going on? And so maybe taking the time to address that, hey, we're here. This is our new home. If you're loving and kind, you're welcome to stay. But if you're not, you need to get the hell out.
Yeah, I have said that many times.
Yeah, and that's really interesting because.
And I've also said, do not scare me, because there were a few times that something might have happened that scared me, like touching me.
Oh yeah.
I don't mean inappropriate touching, just like putting their hand on my shoulder or my back or something. And yeah, there's got to be boundaries, and by addressing that, I couldn't agree more that you gotta state what's okay and what's not. I mean, just like if you have one of those people, like everybody has that friend that's really a close talker and like taps and touches and stuff, and if you're not comfortable with that, you gotta back off. Give me a little room here. Otherwise, they don't know. And so I imagine the same thing is probably true with spirits, Yeah. And so I'd say, you're welcome to stay, but don't scare me and be nice if you can't be nice. Now, if I'm working with the spirit board, I know how to put protection around it, and I know the things you should and shouldn't do.
Excellent. Yeah.
So we never had any. I mean, I used to do that with my mother. My mother and I used to. So,
oh, neat.
And I've, knock on wood, not that I really tend to do anything anymore, but with one, but I never had any bad experience.
Yeah.
But I have had them try to escape off the board. I'm like, no, you don't. You're staying here.
Oh, that's an interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think that they can be used appropriately and they can be used effectively, but it's just, if you follow the instructions on the box,
right.
8 years old and up, and, you just, yeah, sit down and you say, is anyone here? It's like, oh no, you're just inviting anything,
Oh, I know. So, I know. I always would say, are you from the light? I don't know why there's some cosmic rule that they have to tell the truth, and I don't even know that they do. I don't know if the people that I've talked to through spirit boards are actually those people, but you know, I'm a Virgo, so I do have a logical side.
But at least you know enough to put in the protections and, you know, to have the warding and the protection and stuff. So that's wonderful.
When my kids were young, one of the neighborhood kids got a spirit board, and you know, copyright Hasbro or whatever. Yeah. Oh, to digress a moment, you know, I'm here in Maryland. You know, the creator of the spirit board is buried in Baltimore Cemetery, and his tombstone looks like one.
Oh, neat. I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I'm full of trivial information. I really am.
The researcher in you. Yeah, absolutely.
So some kids in the neighborhood, one got it, and I said to my daughter, I said, when they pull that thing out, you come home. Because I know these kids don't know what they're doing.
Right.
So they thought she was a big wussy, of course, because when they would pull it out, she would come home.
Good for her.
And I said to her, the first thing that's going to happen, and it was so cliched what happened, I said, the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to start having dreams. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, what do you think they made contact with first? A Victorian child, a Victorian girl.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then, like I said, then they started having dreams, bad dreams. And then, I don't know, the girl went from being a girl to something malevolent. So they got rid of that. But my daughters were free and clear of that situation. But it unfolded just like I thought it would.
Yep, absolutely. That's great advice. I don't think that, you know, just placing the plastic on there and just start to roll is the way to roll. And I don't think that's, you know, just dragging it through goodbye is how you close it either. But
right.
There's so much more to it. But at any rate, I tell you what, this has been an amazing discussion. I really am thrilled that you came on, and I'm hoping that you'll come back again, because I know you have a lot
I'd
more.
love to.
Oh, that would be fantastic. It'd be great to go further into your stories and of course, talk a little more about the history, the haunted histories that you've been covering.
Oh, I'd love to. I have so much more.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on today, Dana. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me, and I can't wait to talk to you again.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We'll dial it in and figure it out in the near future. So thank you so much, and I really had a blast.
Me too.
Okay.
Get out!
Guys, thank you so much for joining us here on tonight's show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please feel free to follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Paranormal Portal Radio, as well as finding us on Twitter. We're on Twitter at Paranormal Portal, PORTL, and we'd love to have you stop by our YouTube page and subscribe and check out our shows there. We got hundreds of shows, Journeys into the Paranormal Portal, so I hope you'll check it out, guys. We're over there at youtube.com/Paranormal Portal, so hope to see you guys soon. We'll be back, of course, for more podcasts in the coming days. So we love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day. And remember to laugh as much as you can.